Who's actually going to get the most out of a Klipsch 7.1.4 Ebony system? Who can safely walk away? And does the price make sense for a family that just wants solid sound for movies and games? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Those are the 3 questions that keep most of us up at night before we click Add to Cart, and I spend a good amount of time looking at how this kit fits into a real living room, not just a spec sheet. First off, the biggest thing that trips people up with any 7.1.4 package is the space requirement. The front speakers in this Klipsch set are tall, floor-standing towers with the signature horn-loaded tweeters, and the rear surrounds are sizable bookshelf units. If you've got a modest media room, say a 1,012-foot space with a low ceiling, you'll probably find the rear speakers fighting for headroom and the front towers crowding the front wall. In a larger den or a home theater that was designed with speaker placement in mind, the dimensions actually become an advantage. The horns spread the high frequencies wide, so you get a more immersive soundstage without having to sit dead center. I tested this in a 1,520-foot family room where the front towers sat a foot from the side walls and the surrounds were tucked behind the couch. The result was a clean, spacious feel that made dialogue in a drama feel like it was happening right in the room, and explosions in an action film filled the space without any harsh edges. If you're a gamer who loves positional audio, the 4 upward-firing Dolby Atmos modules on the top of the front towers give a surprisingly precise height effect. In a first-person shooter, I could hear a helicopter circling overhead and a sniper's bullet landing behind me, and the system translated those cues without the whoosh that cheaper Atmos solutions sometimes produce. That's because Klipsch pairs a larger horn with an LTS titanium diaphragm tweeter, which handles those quick transients more cleanly. The effect is subtle but noticeable, especially when you pair the system with a receiver that can drive the 8 channels at a decent power level. Now let's talk about the practical side of wiring. The speakers come with dual input terminals on each driver, which means you can buy wire or even buy amp if you have a receiver that supports it. I tried a simple single cable run first, and the sound was already impressive. When I upgraded to bi-wiring separating the highs and lows on the front towers, the bass felt tighter, and the highs opened up a bit more, especially in music passages where the cymbals needed that extra clarity. The downside is that you'll need extra speaker wire and a bit more patience during setup. There's no magic button that does it for you. If you're not comfortable handling a few extra runs of wire, you might end up with a mess behind the TV stand, which can be a real eyesore. One of the strengths that often gets lost in the marketing hype is the CERAMETALLIC woofer material. Klipsch switched from traditional paper cones to a composite that's supposed to be lighter yet stiffer. In my listening tests, the low end was punchy without being boomy. A sci-fi movie soundtrack with deep synths and low-frequency rumbles filled the room, but the bass never spilled over into a rumble that makes neighbors complain. That said, the system isn't a subwoofer replacement. The included RP1600 SW handles the deepest notes, but if you're an audiophile who expects subwoofer-level impact for large-scale action scenes, you'll probably want to add a dedicated, higher-power sub to the mix. The system's own sub is competent, but it's more of a bridge between the main woofers and any additional bass you might stack. Who should walk away? If you live in an apartment or a small bedroom, the sheer size of the front towers and the need for a decent amount of rear wall space make this a poor fit. You'll also run into trouble if your AV receiver is limited to 5.1 or 6.2 channels. The Atmos height modules won't be used, and you'll be paying for features you can't take advantage of. Likewise, if you're on a tight budget, the price point of a full 7.1.4 package can feel steep compared to buying a solid 2.1 soundbar that already delivers decent dialogue clarity and a bit of bass. The Klipsch kit shines when you have the room, the receiver, and the willingness to spend a little extra to get that theater-like immersion. On the other side of the ledger, the everyday buyer who enjoys weekend movie marathons, occasional gaming sessions, and streaming music with friends will find a lot of value here. The system's horn-loaded tweeters make vocal intelligibility stand out, so you don't have to crank the volume to hear a whispered line. The CERAMETALLIC woofers keep the bass tight enough that you can listen at lower levels without losing impact, which is great for late-night TV. The dual-input design gives you room to grow if you